Good morning again, everyone. Welcome back to the KSR YouTube channel. It's another day on Mullet. That's what we're doing around here, trying to get this thing wrapped up and out of here. And you can see that the cage is now dry. Paint is all done. Looks pretty good for a rattle can paint job. If you didn't watch the last video, you don't know how much I dislike painting roll cages. But I dislike painting roll cages because they are not fun. But we are moving on to fabricating the water tank for the intercooler system. Travis is working on that today. I'm going to be working on the tank for the overflow tank for the entire car. So every single thing will drain into one tank, so then it's only one thing to be drained. We are moving it to the back of the car. The drain wasn't going to be in front of the tires, but kind of made more sense since we're going to dump the rear fuel cell into it as well, to just bring it back here to the very back of the bed. And where the line is running underneath the car, we'll probably put a secondary drain in the hose, just so that we can, if any condensation gets built up in the hose itself, we'll be able to drain that. But we have got a bunch of stuff restocked on the winwithksr.com website. Some of you guys were asking about long sleeve shirts, so we got some long sleeve shop shirts that we put on to the website. You guys can check those out if you want to. Please subscribe if you haven't. If you like what we're doing here, we've got the Mullet project as well as a bunch of other projects that are coming up. You can hear we've got some construction going on in the dyno room right now. We'll show you a little bit of that later. Kind of getting some stuff installed back there to make life a little easier back there. But we're gonna get to work, take you guys along for the ride. All right, well, you can see we are back to working on both the interior. Travis is working on some of the accessory harnesses that are going to plug into the ECU and spread throughout the car. Actually, I don't think I've shown these yet. There's our two injector connectors. So whenever he wants to switch the injector control to flush out the race fuel tank, which that's not the final race fuel tank, that was just for Cleetus and cars. All we'll have to do is switch that, fill the race fuel tank up with pump gas, and it'll run whatever ethanol or methanol is in the system. It'll run that out, blend that over, and puts good fuel in the injectors instead of fuel that's going to dry out the internal components in the injectors. If you saw in the time lapse, lots of different mounts for the street fuel cell. So not only are we making it easy to remove the rear fuel cell, we're making it to where it's adjustable. Figure we got, you know, even if there's 5 gallons of gas in there, that's 30 pounds worth of ballast. minimum that we can move from having it all the way back here at the back of the bed. And we've got a mounting spot there, and one more mounting spot up here in front of the axle. So we'll actually start putting weight back on the front axle, or we remove it entirely if we want to make the car super light and go try to run the best TT somewhere. But from what I saw on race week last year, the tracks aren't prepped as good as Bradenton, and that's not faulting the tracks. It's really hard to keep an extremely well prepped track when you've got a lot of cars on street tires that tear up the good prep. So I'm not faulting the track at all, but if we can prepare for tracks that aren't prepped as good as what Bradenton normally is, we can possibly have better success at those tracks when we go to them. So that's why we've got multiple mounting spots back here in the bed. The engine catch tank is right here. I did go ahead and get the metal for that. I'll be bending that up in a minute. You can kind of see what we've got of an idea for the intercooler water tank over there. And it's actually going to be a little bit shorter so that we can access that lip around the edge, because we're putting a bed cover on this thing. So it's going to be something pretty trick, I think, for the bed cover. That won't be in this episode, but maybe in an episode sometime later this week, most likely next week. So we're going to get back to work. See you guys in a little bit. All right, so we're changing gears for just a second here, and I'm helping out with some of the stuff that Travis is doing on the wiring, but we kind of need the steering wheel wrapped up, and this button kind of goes in and is a little floppy inside that bracket. All right, so I'm going to just make a little spacer on my lathe here that will just kind of fill up that gap so it's not all flopping around, and it's going to set the distance. Because if you look, oops. So if we just made this stick all the way through, it's kind of like really far, it feels really far back. Like I'd like for it to be down just a little bit lower. It's only a 1/4 of an inch difference, but just when it comes to driver comfort, it just feels a whole lot better to move that back just a little bit. So we're gonna machine this little spacer and assemble that, wire the steering wheel, and then Travis can tie that all into the ECU wiring that he's building. Get this thing cranking along. All right, so I will snug that up, put a little dab of Loctite on it, and then we can wire that button to the plug, and then Travis can tie the steering wheel harness into the ECU. Be on to another project. Time lapse, you saw me kind of quickly weld this up right there towards the end, and that's where it goes right there. So that's driver side valve cover, passenger side valve cover, and if we need to get under the valve covers, we can just pop this off here. Same with the other side, you can just pop the hose off, and then this hose will run back to the back of the car to our catch tank that's back there at the very back of the bed, and then it'll have a little kind of stovepipe sticking out of the top of the bed that you'll see wisping a little bit while the car is running, but all of the fluid systems are going to dump into that one catch tank. So it'll be one lever to dump at the back of the car to dump out that whole, any kind of overflow that's, you know, burped out into the catch tank. But I'm going to start building this, and I think I am going to put another little valve in the line right up here at the lowest point, just in case any kind of condensation or moisture ends up in there. It would take quite a bit, but since it's kind of making a U, you know, down through the middle of the car, there's the potential that that could kind of slowly fill up with condensation or moisture, and then the engine doesn't really breathe unless it pushes all that moisture back out into the catch tank. Since we're going to be driving quite a bit, you know, through who knows what kind of conditions, whether it'll be very humid conditions, you know, say through the mountains or here in Florida, just trying to give us an option to be able to dump that ahead of time without having to remake the whole system. So I'm going to make my little manifold down here, as well as plumb this line. One more step. you guys can see, if you didn't see in the time lapse, you can see where we've got that set up right there. And the hose for the valve cover comes down, or goes from the valve covers, comes down right there. And the reason we did this elbow here is we're gonna have a little spout sticking off of there, and it'll have a valve in it, just in case this hose fills up with any condensation or moisture or anything, because it is the lowest point and it's gonna have hot air in it, you know, from the crankcase of the engine. So by having a drain at the low point, you know, we'll be able to drain that there, but the majority of the condensation and moisture should be in the catch tank itself. But I still wanted to add an extra drain just in case. It's a lot easier to add it now while we're building the car versus it is to come back and have a problem at an event somewhere and you got to make a mess and can't find hose ends and all that other stuff. So trying to be a little bit ahead on that. I'll make a tab that either bolts it here or bolts it over to there. Haven't quite decided yet, but I made the little piece there that sticks off. I got a little ball valve coming in tomorrow, and on the exit of the valve it'll actually have an AN cap on it too, so not only will the valve shut it off, but it'll have a cap on it so no leaks, since that is in front of the tires there. But once that's the tab is all made, the hose is going to come back, cross under this bar, and then go up into the bed to where it will attach to the tank in the driver's side back corner. So that kind of wraps up that. You can see what Travis got done on the harness today. Wrapped up the rest of the heat shrink on the firewall connector, as well as these are the injector wires for the street injector set. Those go to the back of our firewall connector over there. And then over here, the two large red wires are left and right coil power. And then we've got the grounds that are just going to go to the ground stud. These each have a relay, their own relay they plug into on the relay board. These all go to a Deutsch connector, and then will be run from here over to the relay board in various spots. The Deutsch connector just makes it to where we can take, you know, each individual harness out if need be. But we did add 2 extra wires into the harness that are just inside of this heat shrink, just in case we ever have a wire that's giving us a problem. We just put 2 new ends on it, plug it in to each end of the, or plug it into the firewall connector, plug it into the ECU pin that's giving us trouble, and then be able to hopefully fix any problem that we might have. I can't say that I've ever had that problem in one of these Holly cars that I've been doing. We have had some factory harnesses break down, like in the Viper. We had some random stuff happening, chased it back to a break somewhere in the middle of the harness, and rather than cut out all of the wiring and the loom and all that other stuff, we just replaced the engine harness, back to good again. But with these things, you know, it's not an OEM harness that has thousands of street miles on it before the car is converted into a race car. This is all brand new, should give us years of service. And hopefully we will be on the dyno with this thing very soon. Kind of got to work some scheduling out with Cleetus, because obviously he wants to be here for the first dyno. And we are preparing to take 1, possibly 2 cars to Indy, and we're gonna have our merch stuff available, at least some stuff that we can get back in stock. We do have some new long sleeve KSR shop shirts, which I think I mentioned in the intro to this video, but if I didn't, I just mentioned it. But winwithksr.com for the merch. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. We will see you in the next one.